time to rest in between because fatigue is a big issue with MS. But I don't let it stop me. So, I've learned to acclimate my world to having this disease of the body, something that can't be helped, but I still just continue on.
And Kandis talked about how important faith was to her singing career. I imagine that both with the disease and just life in general, that faith probably plays a very important part to your singing career as well.
I'm sorry, say it one more time for me.
I said I imagine that faith probably plays a very important part in your singing career as well.
Absolutely. Faith does play a huge part in my singing career. I noticed that I was going through some transitions in my faith, and that's one of the reasons why I named it Dragonflies on Wings, because dragonflies, that's what they symbolize, is transition. And within my spirituality, I transitioned from being an agnostic into a more Christian faith. I was baptized in the Episcopal Church, but now I find that in studying Vedic literatures, I'm finding a lot of solace within that.
Wow. But it's definitely giving you some cause to think about different things on a more spiritual level, even as you're performing. So I imagine that that's probably, like I said, helped you with your singing career and things of that nature. Now, exactly, you explained it a little bit, but what exactly does Dragonflies on Wings mean, and how did that title come about?
Well, Dragonflies on Wings, to me, it's just the what the dragonfly symbolizes in itself, and its wings is, flight, transformation, adaptability, and self-realization. And again, in my studying the Vedic literatures, the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, I have found a lot more self-realization. And so, the CD has been like a personal transformation for me as well.
Yeah, I can see what that would be. What are some of your other favorite songs from the CD?
Oh, let's see. Another one of my favorite songs is Don't Go to Strangers, which was originally done by Etta Jones. And that one turned out very, very nice. I had Philip Wolf add strings to it. And again, it just turned out to be one of the best songs that we have on there. Another one is To Sir with Love. And that's an oldie but a real goodie. And we have put just a little bit of a spin to it, more of an Americana jazz type feel to it, but yet it still has the same 50s, 60s vibe also.
Wow. And now I want to bring a level of the conversation into like more of a group conversation and everything. So I definitely appreciate you telling us a little bit about the song and everything. But if the people that are on the line with us, one of the things that we talked about on this show is the fact that a lot of times we don't necessarily pay enough attention to our history. And by that I mean like whether it's musical history and understanding who some of our musical legacies are and who some of our musical people are, even on the school level, or definitely the history of like social justice and the struggles that we've been involved in, or even understanding like rights, because a lot of times we have Dave Hall on there. A lot of times we don't even know our own basic rights. So I just want to know if people could jump in and just think about what we're doing wrong as a society in terms of teaching about history and just in education in general, because it seems to me that we've gone away from some very basic education, which is teaching critical thinking and teaching about our history and teaching about very basic civics knowledge, and we've gotten away from that, and even teaching creativity. And we all know that creativity is very important to teaching, helping us develop our critical thinking skills.
Well, personally, one of the things that I think we need to teach our children is history that's actually based on history, and that is real history, not history that someone else wants our children to learn.
That's very true. Todd, are you still there?
Yeah.
and Dave. Sure. So if y'all want to jump in, I'd love to hear from Todd and Dave as well, and Kandis.
Yeah, I think, I was kind of saying it earlier, I think my biggest lesson for all of us, I've learned it through the technology space, is we've got to stop listening to the opinions that the media wants us to follow, and we need to start using our own discernment and our own thinking towards each other. I think when we believe what we hear and what we see in the news, we forget that the news and the social media that we spend a lot of time on is designed for one purpose. And I know because I helped design one of these pieces of technology, and regrettably. But I think what we learn is that those technologies want us to do one thing, and that is to click on something. That's how they get their money. So the more we click, the more advertising they sell, and that goes for the media as well. And so if we believe everything we're hearing instead of believing, what's in our own minds and in our own hearts, what we end up doing is we end up making the problems bigger instead of just talking about the solutions. That would be my top thinking on that.
All right. And Dave, what do you have?
Yeah. I think we're up against, again, when I talk about systemic and institutional issues and our cultural issues, we know that when we do a power mapping and we figure out who's in power, we all know that our history gets rewritten in the textbooks based on who is in power and the story they want to tell. And certainly for me to see slavery in America, changed in the history books to not being called slavery, and, we had happy slaves, and, we've got to be careful. This kind of stuff sneaks up on you. We got to be plugged in to what our children are learning. And for me, just aside from that, so I have kids, and like Common Core math snuck up on me. And all of a sudden I can't help my kids with their math homework. And it's like, what is going on here? So that takes me out of the equation unless I'm going to go back, learn what they're learning and how they're learning. Otherwise, it just gets away from us, and we are rendered unqualified or unable to take a role that parents traditionally took in helping to educate their kids.
You're definitely right about that.
To be careful.
Yeah, and definitely you're right about that. And one of the things I noticed is you had one of your kids, your daughter, there at your campaign event yesterday, and it seems like she's definitely playing an active role in the campaign. And that's one of the things that I have been admiring is the fact that our young people, and I know you've been involved in seeing this with some of the groups that you're part of, they do seem to be taking more of an active role in trying to be engaged in the political dialogue. At least that's what I've been seeing is a lot more people that are, say, in their teen years, even in their 20s, and maybe even in their early 30s, that seem to be more engaged in terms of activism. I would say it's almost similar to what, from what I understand, and I was only a child myself at that time, but it seems like very similar to what was going on in the 60s. And with the civil rights kind of movement, it was definitely kid-oriented and kid-led.
Yeah, we could do a whole lot better with getting the young folks. I don't know if the millennials are aging out yet, and there's something behind them. But one of the community members had a judicial forum in her kitchen, where all of us candidates, crowded in her kitchen, and she had a regular judicial forum, and who she invited was millennials. So it was an attempt to get them engaged. It was probably, a noble effort to engage the young folks in this political process. And she had all of us in there, from the sheriffs to the Superior Court judges, the district court judges, and that's the kind of thing that we need to be available to attend, and that the community needs to host. So it was good. It was good to see that effort. I applaud her.
And Kandis, if you're still there, it seems like a lot of the millennials are very much involved in what's going on at Christ Central. I mean, from the praise leader on to the people involved in the church itself. I mean, the pastor himself isn't that old. I think he just turned 40 or something like that. Is Kandis still there, or did she drop off the call?
Oh, I'm here. I was on mute. Sorry. Sorry.
No problem. No problem.
There's a number of amazing people who are really pushing back. I think that as Christians, we recognize these social injustices, and we know who Jesus is, and we know that he is just, and we desire to be like Jesus in this way, and we devote our lives to bringing justice, and I think that there's a number of people who do that in a number of different ways. Justice Matters is one of the particular agencies that I can think of now that Libby Coles, she was a part of our congregation for a while, and she dreamed that up, and it's really done a tremendous work in Durham and really in many different parts of the world. That's just one of many, many examples of ways that the people in our congregation do contribute.
No doubt about that. And one of the things that I've always, you mentioned it earlier, but you were talking about how much you admire the activism of Durham. So what was it that appealed to you about the activism of Durham? Because you mentioned that earlier in the conversation, and when you moved here, you said that you noticed a more like a rise in the activism and also a rise in the cultural community. So I was just wondering if you want to share a little bit about what you've observed happening in Durham in the last few years.
Oh, yeah. One of the things that I loved what Todd said earlier, that he likes to, how did you put it? You disturb things. You don't let things go undisturbed, right? I don't know exactly how you put it, but yes, there it is. I just feel like there have been just so many different things that have happened that no longer, I think the poisonous thing that people can easily believe is it doesn't matter and it doesn't have anything to do with me. And the more people believe that, the more pacified they are, and the less they can actually do to cause and affect change. It's a dumbing down and a numbing and apathy of sorts within our culture, and I have seen a big shift where it does feel like there are things that have happened that are certainly tragic, but it's nothing new. It's just that now people are seeing it in a very big way, and like it or love it, I think social media has a large part to play in that, and media itself giving attention to certain things and over attention of certain things and not any attention to certain things. I think people are now really just kind of suspicious and asking more questions, knowing that what we're being fed is not the whole story, and pushing in, just pushing in more and asking why more, and realizing that absolutely it does matter, and absolutely it has everything to do with me too. And I do see a cultural shift there. Go ahead.
I would love to chime in when you talked about, this is Dave, when you talked about tragedy and movements and our young folks. Certainly we have to look at and not ignore these school shootings and what happened in Florida and the political movement that came out of these young folks talking about, energizing them to vote, to get out and vote. These young folks are probably, these seniors are probably voting age now. And if you remember the movement about getting out the vote against these legislators that did not want to impose